Welcome back to BitSummit Drift. I'm your host, HighGai, and my voice is a little bit dead because this is the third day I've been talking all day long. But today we want to hit off really big. We got our legendary indie developer. I think I'm not lying by saying this. Thierry over here. Nice to meet you. For the people who might not know, which I doubt it, could you introduce yourself towards the camera a little bit?
Hi, it's nice to meet you. My name is Thierry. I'm based in Quebec City in Canada. That's the French part. And so we make indie game, retro-inspired. Our first title came out in 2018. It was called The Messenger. It's a ninja action platformer, Metroidvania type. And our second game is called Sea of Stars. It came out last summer in August. It's a turn-based RPG, very much inspired by the Super Famicom ethos.
Yes, thank you. Also, first of all, let me apologize. I was calling you Thierry. I didn't know how to pronounce your name.
Oh, it's French.
I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh my goodness.
No, you're fine.
I mispronounced your name. But so, I have seen your games. I loved their, first of all, The Messenger, definitely nice. Definitely an interesting take on the side-scroll, high-pace action game, if I would say, going back to 8-bit to 16-bit is amazing. And then Sea of Stars, my goodness. I grew up with, Secret Mana style RPG with Chrono Trigger in there too, and then definitely seeing Sea of Stars, I haven't been able to play it, which is still hurts me till this day. But everything I see about it, great. And so first thing first, I think this is your first BitSummit after releasing Sea of Stars.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you came over to BitSummit 2018-19 when you released The Messenger.
Right.
And I think that's a big gap, 5-year gap before.
Oh yeah.
You came back to BitSummit. How has it changed? Because we had a COVID in between too, a lot of things probably changed between 2019 and 2024. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of talk to you or ask you about what did you realize, what kind of things has changed, and all those good stuff.
Well, it's I think it's a great example of I got the before and after picture kind of, and from my perspective, it grew so much. So many booths are bigger. There's a lot more games. There's even, I don't think there were 2 floors.
Exactly.
Right?
This is the first
floor.
time we have the first floor and the third floor to showcase different kind of games. So
this is unreal, and just walking around and meeting people, it feels way big. It always felt legitimate. BitSummit to me is a very authentic, a very genuine, developer-centric event. So I like that it still has that feeling, even though it grew. So props to the event for sure.
Oh yeah, especially they added the board game area too, and nowadays a lot of I would say it's weird to say indie board games, but I guess that's the correct title, where a lot of people are actually now making their own board games too. So it seems in different way, the game industry, not video game, but just the game industry in general is going big, and I love it. So, and then I also wanted to ask, does people treat you a little bit differently? Because before it was The Messenger, right? So, and then that was your first game that you kind of released as yourself with your own studio. And now you have released another banger, Sea of Stars. Has people started recognizing you more for that, or did people would be
right.
How they approach you changed over time?
Yes, some people do recognize because they saw an interview or they saw a documentary that we did and things like that. But what I like about this is more that they see I know what to talk about with this person, and then we get into talking about the dev life, we talk about game design and stuff like that, and then you can look at their game and you know what to ask, and then you exchange email, and it's when you want to follow up later with a build, a playtest, you want some comments, it's so fun to make these acquaintances, and oh yeah. Oh,
nice. And then I think because you've been to other events all over the world too, right? I believe I saw you at PAX too, and so I wanted to also ask what difference do you feel between the the outside of Japan's indie scene, or even different countries, and Japan's indie scene, especially talking with the Japanese developers as well. I don't know if you have any thing that you recognize?
I feel like at the very edge of creativity, of like ideas having like side. I don't want to say crazy, but you know what I mean. Like in a good way, it's sort of like
uniqueness.
I feel like there are.
Say,
oh yeah. The game where you have to go to Brazil by digging there, you know,
it's like interesting. You did think about it as a kid. Like, if I dig a hole right now, do I go to Japan? Like, do I get to Brazil or the United States? And then you're like, okay, we got to make a game for this. It's like, okay.
No, so definitely there's something really special about the games. Like, it's different flavors, but it's really fun, and it's also super inspiring to see people just shooting for their dreams. You know, that's always inspiring.
See, like, you have been playing, making, I guess, classic games that is inspired by old classic Super Nintendo, NES games. But then now you see all these like, wacky might not be like a good perfect word for it, but like crazy games that again, like Japanese developers are making, where like you just gotta shake the Coke bottle and go to the moon or something like that. Would that start like inspiring you to kind of make like a completely different game? Like now that you're making classic, now.
I mean, everything that we do gets, you know, everything we look at or touch, it bleeds into what we end up doing, right? So that's why also part of what I mean by inspiring is that what I'm feeling during this event is a very good reminder that at the end of the day, games are something that you play, right? They're a toy, it's supposed to make you laugh, it's supposed to bring you amusement. And I'm seeing a lot of ideas, a lot of projects that are very close to that core concept. Like, that's the thing you should play with and have fun while you play with it.
That's true. Nice. Yeah, like especially just every year I feel like everybody's come up with like brand new stuff at BitSummit too. So, but then, again, going back to your games. So last year you had an amazing launch of Sea of Stars, and people still are playing it till this day. And I guess like asking you about like what are your next plan might be a little too early, but I don't know if you have like anything that's coming up.
Yeah, we're working on so for Sea of Stars we're working on a co-op mode update that's going to, we don't have a date yet, but not because it's a secret, just because we want it to be as good as we can make it first. So co-op, so up to 3 players, you'll be able to like roam the world and do battle together and everything. Awesome. Couch co-op, you know, we want it offline, we want that experience of talking with one another. And then we're also doing a few quality of life updates there, and we're also working on DLC. We don't have a date yet, but we did. But we're pretty overt about it. It's called Throes of the Watchmaker. Seems to have to do with a watchmaker, maybe clockwork, magic or something.
All right.
So we're hard at work on that, and we started prototyping our next game, but that's going to be years before
of course.
we have anything to say about it.
Making video games obviously will take so much time, and you have expressed how long it takes you to create each game, so it's insane. Do you think like, I know your background of like a game player programmer as well, and you just keep on playing, and then you went to programming, developing games, and while you develop game from the Messengers to Sea of Stars, there are like more tools that's being available every year, or every year that's just like Unity's coming up, Unreal Engine 5, like everybody's like started jumping on that, and also open software Godot is actually becoming big. You think like developing video games are becoming easier for you because it's like 2 completely different genres, so I guess it's like comparing that is a little hard, but do you think like it's actually becoming like to, I guess, materialize your vision becoming easier for you, or it's again because now that you made a certain game, you're like, okay, next game I want to do more. It just became harder. I wanted to know like if.
Well, so there's one thing, like, because sometimes we talk about like, oh, is it you go from action platformer to turn-based RPG? It's so different. Like, what were the challenges? And it's like, honestly, like, I think the biggest challenge for us would be to make a sequel, because the journey. Because taking like a genre of a game that we all loved as kids, and then like pruning what aged well, what didn't, what do we rethink, how do we present what we love, how do we make this as good as our memories of those games for modern players. It is so invigorating and so motivating, this like journey of, you know, game design, level design, gameplay coding, art direction, everything, music, that once we released the game, we left nothing on the table. And so it's actually for us like switching to another genre is like, we get to do that journey anew. And so motivation is there, the drive is there. Making a sequel is like, we're kind of done. We did
like
everything.
You gotta try to make something better in a way, but you're like, but I put everything in there.
Yeah.
It's like, how am I gonna make something different?
Yeah.
I guess that's what all developer went through. So that's why, like, back in the day, every time sometimes like a game sequel comes up, it's like a completely different genre. It's like, what is this game? Maybe everybody was going through that too. My goodness. So I guess like when you say you're prototyping your new game, are you completely going a different genre again? Or?
Yeah, so what we have is the high concept, which the team is all on board with. We had like a summit, where we all talk, and I'm trying to pitch the next thing that I'm seeing. And so the equivalent, for the next game, if it were Sea of Stars, would be like, look, you're the children of the solstice. If you're born on the solstice, you get the power of the sun or the moon. You combine your power. It's a turn-based RPG, looks like Super Nintendo, and you're fighting off evil with your sun and moon powers. Let's make this, and we want to be able in traversal to climb on everything, jump down everything. So these these pillars of what the game will feel like, everyone is on board with that. Then prototyping is like, okay, but what are the controls? What's the camera? How do we find the proper pacing? Can puzzles be fun within that context? All of that. So we gotta have the equivalent of that now for the third game, which is everyone is on board with the high concept, the idea, the why we're doing it, and the key selling points to it, both narrative and gameplay. And now we're kind of like putting the ink to paper to kind of like make it work in the engine to start mapping how we actually, bring it to life essentially.
Gotcha. My goodness. Like, I love that your games actually share a world, although it's like completely different genres. And then you got a ninja over there, and then I was like, but when I heard it, I was like, but it's in the same universe. I was like, oh my goodness. So I'm like, eventually, you're prototyping a new game, and I'm assuming it's gonna be in the same world, right?
Yeah.
Is there any plans of like complete super future that you're gonna just combine everybody that, like in a way, a long live alive kind of moment where you're just playing each person and then all of exactly. Everybody just gets connected into one big boss and you're just like you can play. I don't know. I was just like thinking
that. Sick,
I was like, are you actually doing the Avengers?
The triathlon. Yes. Hero as their gameplay. And
do you think that could be a possibility in the future?
I would say so. Well, I mean, it's the idea is very cool, very appealing. For me, it's a big world, and I've been building this fantasy world since I was a kid. So when we make games, we basically tell some important arcs of this whole thing. So there is a culmination, there is an ultimate ending. I don't know that it's fun actually to get there for real at some point, because then it's just over. So maybe we'll just keep telling these pocket stories. Maybe at some point we'll be like, hey, we're done. So here's the I don't know.
It's just like a conclusion of this whole world. All right. I will be looking forward to it. Probably it's gonna be, if that's gonna happen, it's gonna be like a while later.
Hopefully.
So I will be looking forward to that. My goodness. So this is your first time. I'm like kind of gonna change the topic a little bit, bring it back to BitSummit and also Japan. So, is this your first time coming back to Japan since 2019?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So, how do you think? Like, I know you have expressed like how BitSummit changed. Do you think the game industry in general kind of changed in Japan as well, or like atmospherically, like what has have you realized?
There's obviously it's always a moving landscape, right? In terms of the industry out here, I wouldn't say I know sort of enough about it. We're friends with a few devs and we're aware like how they're doing and what they're working on and stuff like that. The energy still seems to be there, which is always like
it's nice.
It's super fun to see. But other than that, I feel like, again, BitSummit is my one big reference point. So I'm just seeing more games than the last time I was around, so I can only assume it's doing great. But no, it seems like, there's still new generations of people inspired to just have at their thing and have a creative pursuit. And the world needs more of that for sure.
Awesome. Now that you actually released like 2 indie games, do you have any advice that you would want to give your younger self? As a senpai indie developer to a kohai indie developer, like what you would have done that made your life easier, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a hard question because like we ended up here with 2 releases, you know, so it's like changing anything might actually mean
that,
you know,
like you actually made it, so it's like by
yeah.
changing something, the weird butterfly effect might happen.
Right. Because, you know, like if you think of something like you're working out a muscle, you know, and it's like, hey, now that you can lift like 300 pounds, what would you tell yourself when you could only lift 150? It's like, don't do those reps, you don't need them now. No, but you needed them
That's
then.
true, that is true.
And so I think any hardship, anything I would have had a fast track or I got to skip some friction, I think would have shaped us differently as a team. And maybe we wouldn't have been as like fit, if you will, for the challenges, because as the opportunities came, we were increasingly more ready for the next one. So I think for me, like the advice is like just embrace that kind of chaos and welcome it as a teachable moment, because you'll be glad you went through that thing whenever it's even harder later. You know, you'll be glad that you're fit for that.
Gotcha. Also, then, because I think as an indie developer, one thing that's always hard is marketing your game.
Oh yeah.
Right, like try to get as much people as possible to see your game at least. Like sometimes you'll have like this amazing treasure, but if no one sees it, it's just like a hidden gem. People so call it hidden gem. It's gonna be an unfortunate circumstance. What do you think, like, for, I guess, aspiring indie devs or even just developers in general that they're making a game, like what do you think you can give them an advice of like how to market your game? Like one thing that worked for you that you can be like, you should definitely, if you're not doing this, you should do it.
Right. So there's 2 things, 2 considerations here. The first point is, for us, we treat marketing as one of the crafts. Like, you know, if you're on your team chat, you have a channel for level design, you have a channel for programming, for audio, you have a channel for marketing. And marketing isn't something separate from production. It's an inherent part of it. It's one of your main pillars. It's one of your crafts that you need to have someone consider daily and work towards and have objectives and deliverables and everything. So first of all, that's a big one. The second one, it's a bit more simple, but I think implementing it can be hard. Is letting the game speak for itself. It's like whenever you show the game, and you should, right? It can be a GIF on social media. It can be, you know, just let the game speak for itself. Don't tie into what's the current meme this week and try to be funny as well with it to get followers, because then you get followers, you don't know if they're there for your game or because you memed it properly on the Star Wars thing that everyone was talking about.
Got it.
And so you let the game speak for itself, and you make sure that when people look at the content marketing that you do, right, anything you post online, what they get out of it, if they tell someone else, is actually what your game is. So that there isn't a clash when you release of like, I thought it was a store management game, but it's actually like an action, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that way, if you communicate, if you show your game as genuinely as possible and you let it speak for itself, people will talk about your game on their own, not with the words you feed them, they'll talk about it on their own, and then you embrace whatever they say. And then you can do some marketing based off on like, okay, everyone said that the world map is this thing, we're gonna be using that surname for it as well. And then you build a community, right? Which is also like another big step.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Like, I feel like I got so much insight of making indie games as well, so thank you very much for that. So at the end, I would want to wrap it up for the people who's watching this video. Like, what would you want to say to people who's hasn't been to BitSummit but who wants to even visit or express, like actually showcase an indie game, or what do you want to tell them to also make them decide to get that push to decide to come to BitSummit?
Oh, there's not a single angle from which you might regret doing it. It's just no. It's like it was life-changing for us. It's larger than life. Like the first time Japan hits you, it's like, well, what is this? And then also being here, BitSummit, the community, the sense that you get from everyone, it is so warm. It's part of. So it's kind of like a blurry picture that comes into focus the first time I was at BitSummit. It's like, this is why I do this. This is the type of experience, the type of adventure that I wanted. Everything feels right about this. You need to come over next year.
All right, thank you very much. I believe you have a long day after this as well. So Thank you again for coming by, and hopefully you have a great BitSummit, and I am looking forward to your future DLC and all the other projects as well. So thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thank you. And for the people who's watching this video, thank you very much for watching. Please follow, subscribe to this YouTube channel because we are interviewing more content creators and developers as well. So please stay tuned. All right. In other ways, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.